The shameful scene was almost sunset in a small town nestled just off the California coast. The salty breeze danced through the streets, and the sky painted itself in soft shades of orange and pink. The diner on the corner of 6th Street had just started to fill with its regular crowd. Old men played checkers near the window, couples leaned in close in their booths, and music from a jukebox hummed gently in the background. Behind the counter, a young black waitress named Janelle moved quickly from one table to another. She had kind eyes, a strong voice, and a warm laugh that customers loved. She had been working double shifts for weeks, saving money for her little brother's college fund. Her shoes were worn, and her apron stained, but her spirit was unbreakable. Tonight, however, the air felt different. Tension seemed to creep in just as 3 bikers walked through the door. Their heavy boots clunked loudly on the floor. The biggest one, a bald man with tattoos covering both arms, had a voice like a growl. His name was Rex. He glanced around the diner with a smug smile and sat himself at the largest booth with his buddies. Janelle approached with a calm smile. "Good evening. Can I start y'all off with some drinks?" Rex leaned back, his eyes cold. "You can start by getting someone who speaks proper English." Janelle paused. She blinked once, then smiled again, her voice steady. "I'll be right back with some menus." But Rex wasn't done. Double quotes, "Nah, girl," he said loud enough for the entire diner to hear. "You think you're better than us just 'cause you work here. Bet you don't even know who your daddy is." His friends laughed cruelly. The laughter echoed through the room like glass breaking. Forks paused mid-air, heads turned. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Janelle stood frozen for a second. Then, slowly, she turned to face them, her eyes watering but her chin held high. "Sir," she said quietly, "please don't speak to me like that." Rex slapped the table. "Oh, I'll speak how I want. You're just a server. Serve me." What no one knew, what Rex certainly didn't know, was that in the far corner of the diner, sitting quietly with a hood over his head and sunglasses on, was Keanu Reeves. He had come in just 10 minutes earlier, hoping for a quiet meal away from the cameras, the noise, and the world that often felt too loud. But when he heard that biker's words, something stirred deep in him. He didn't move at first. He watched how Janelle held her tears back, how her lips pressed together so tightly they turned white, how no one in the diner stood up for her, and he remembered. He remembered being young and poor, working random jobs. He remembered his mother being called names while cleaning hotel rooms. He remembered silence. And he remembered the pain of being invisible. Rex snapped his fingers. "Where's my burger, girl?" Janelle took a shaky breath and turned away to head back to the kitchen. As she passed Keanu's table, he gently reached out and touched her elbow. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Can I speak to the manager for a moment?" Janelle nodded, confused. A few moments later, the manager, an older man named Gus, came out from the back. He was wiping his hands on a towel, clearly stressed. "Hey buddy," Gus said. "Everything okay?" Keanu pulled down his hood and removed his glasses. Gus single quotes as eyes widened. "Keanu ... Reeves?" Keanu stood slowly, calm and quiet. "I'm not here for attention," he said. "But what I just witnessed, that can't happen in your diner." Gus looked embarrassed. "I know. No, Rex comes in sometimes and he humiliated her," Keanu interrupted. "In front of a full room, and no one said a word." The diner had gone completely silent. Even Rex and his crew stopped talking. Keanu turned to the room. His voice, calm but firm, filled the space. "We live in a world where people think it's okay to treat others like trash. Where bullying someone doing honest work is seen as funny. We have to be better than that." Then he looked at Janelle. "You didn't deserve that," he said. "Your job matters. Your dignity matters." Janelle's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they weren't from pain. Rex stood up, puffing out his chest. What are you, some Hollywood boy trying to play hero? Keanu didn't raise his voice. No, I'm just a man who saw something wrong and decided not to stay silent. Then he did something no one expected. He walked over to Rex's booth and sat down right across from him. Go ahead, he said. Tell me why you think it's okay to speak to her like that. Rex blinked. What? I'm listening, Keanu said. Say it again. This time, say it to me. For the first time, Rex looked uncertain. He glanced at his friends, then at the room full of staring faces. He mumbled, I was just joking. Keanu leaned in. Racism isn't a joke. Cruelty isn't a joke. And if you ever speak to anyone like that again, you'll be answering to more than just a crowd. You'll answer to every person who believes in kindness, dignity, and justice. The room exploded in applause. Even Gus, the manager, wiped his eyes. Rex, red-faced and humiliated, tossed a few bills on the table and stormed out with his crew. Keanu stood slowly and turned to Janelle. You okay? She nodded, speechless. Don't ever let someone like that make you feel small, he said. You stood tall today. Then he took out a checkbook, scribbled something, and handed it to her. Janelle looked down. The check was for $20,000. For your brother, Keanu said. You mentioned college. Her mouth fell open. Thank you, she whispered. No, Keanu said with a gentle smile. Thank you for showing more strength in 5 minutes than most people do in a lifetime. The diner was quiet again, but this time it was filled with awe. Strangers came up to Janelle, offering hugs, apologies, and respect. As Keanu walked out into the setting sun, someone asked him, Why'd you do that? He paused at the door and said simply, Because someone had to. And with that, he disappeared into the night. But for everyone in that diner, especially Janelle, nothing would ever be the same again. Whispers in the unearthed morning after the incident. The diner on 6th Street felt different. There was a quiet buzz of curiosity and admiration swirling in the air. Customers trickled in earlier than usual, not for the pancakes or coffee, but because of what had happened the night before. Janelle walked through the front door, her apron folded under her arm, her eyes still a little puffy from everything she'd felt in the last 12 hours. But something in her had changed. She felt seen. She felt strong. As she stepped behind the counter, people started clapping. One of the regulars, Miss Gladys, an old woman who always ordered sweet tea and grits, stood up and pointed to Janelle. Baby. Girl, she said, her voice shaking a little. What you did last night. That was brave. And what he did for you, Lord, it restored something in my soul. Janelle's cheeks turned pink. Thank you, Miss Gladys. Another man stood up. We're proud of you, Janelle. You didn't deserve what that man said. And I'm sorry we didn't say something sooner. It's okay, Janelle said softly. I understand. People freeze sometimes. But let's just promise not to let it happen again. They all nodded. Gus came out of the kitchen and gave her a sheepish look. I should have stepped in too. I froze, Janelle. That's on me. Janelle smiled at him. You've always had my back, Gus. Don't beat yourself up. He rubbed his face with his apron. Well, just know that if that biker ever steps foot in here again, he's banned. And I'm upgrading your shift to head server. Full pay bump. The crowd clapped again. But even as the air buzzed with joy and healing, not far from there, something darker was brewing. Across town, Rex sat at a table in a dusty bar. His pride was wounded, and the humiliation from last night burned hotter than the whiskey in his glass. He slammed the drink down and looked at his buddies. That Hollywood clown made a fool out of me. One of his friends, Vince, looked nervous. You kinda asked for it, man. You went too far with the girl. Rex's eyes turned cold. I didn't ask for your opinion. I'm just saying, KeanuReeves, we ain't winning that one. Rex leaned forward, tapping his fingers on the table. I don't care who he is. I won't be laughed at like that. He made me look weak. And now people are talking. Vincent. Tried to calm him down. What are you gonna do? Go after him? Rex's face twisted into a wicked grin. No, I'm gonna go after the girl. Back at the diner, Janelle was working her tables when her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. You think you're special now? Enjoy it while it lasts. She froze. Her hands shook slightly as she slid the phone into her pocket and looked around. The sun was shining through the windows, the smell of eggs and toast filled the air, and people were smiling at her. But suddenly, everything felt off. After her shift, she met her best friend Tasha at the small park near their apartments. You look like you've seen a ghost, Tasha said. Janelle showed her the message. What kind of twisted person does that? Tasha muttered. You need to go to the cops. And say what? Janelle asked. They won't take one text seriously. And we don't even know who sent it. You really think it's that biker? Janelle nodded slowly. I do. Tasha looked around, as if someone might be watching. Then you need help, Janelle chuckled bitterly. I can't exactly call Keanu Reeves for backup. But just then, her phone buzzed again. It was another message, this time from an email. I don't like bullies either. I'm nearby if you need help. Keanu's heart skipped. She showed it to Tasha, who blinked hard. Wait, is that ... It has to be him, Janelle whispered. She stared at the message for a long time before replying. Thank you. I'm okay for now. But if anything changes, I'll reach out. What she didn't know was that Keanu had quietly stayed in the area. He had felt something deeper stir in him after what he witnessed. This wasn't just about one rude customer. It was about standing up in a world that too often stayed silent. And he wasn't done yet. Meanwhile, back at the biker bar, Rex was gathering more than just words. He had found out where Janelle lived. He scribbled her name on a napkin, then crossed it out with a sharp line. Nobody embarrasses me, he said. To himself. Not some waitress, and not even Keanu Reeves. But what he didn't realize, what he couldn't possibly know, was that someone else had eyes on him too. Not a friend, not even an enemy. Just someone who had been following him for some time. A man in a dark hoodie watched from across the bar. He pulled out his phone and texted a number. He's planning something. We need to move now. The reply came quickly. Keep watching. Don't engage. I'll handle it. As the night fell over the town, a storm was gathering quietly, slowly. The events at the diner had set something powerful in motion. A line had been crossed. And now hearts would be tested, secrets revealed, and courage demanded. For Janelle, it was just the beginning. And for Keanu Reeves, this wasn't about fame or headlines. It was about doing what was right. Asterisk. Shadows on the doorstep. Wind howled through the streets that night, rattling windows and rustling trash cans. Janelle sat on her small couch in her one-bedroom apartment, the room dimly lit by a single lamp. Her brother Jaden was in his room, playing music softly through his headphones. He had no idea what had happened at the diner, and Janelle didn't want to burden him. He was only 16. She wanted him to stay focused on school, on hope, on dreams, but her mind couldn't rest. The threatening messages still echoed in her head. She kept glancing at her phone, at the message from Keanu. It felt strange, surreal even, to know that a man like him was watching over her in the shadows. But at the same time, it made her feel safer. Just then, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't loud, but it was firm. Her heart jumped. She stepped quietly to the door and peeked through the peephole. No one was there. She frowned. Maybe it was a kid messing around. But when she opened the door slowly, she saw it taped to the outside. Single piece of paper. She pulled it down and unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a photo of her and Jaden, taken from outside their window. Janelle gasped. Her hands trembled. Her legs nearly gave out. They were being watched. Across town, Keanu sat in his car, parked just a block from the diner. He didn't want to interfere too soon. He had learned over the years that sometimes the best way to help was to observe until the right moment arrived. But when his phone buzzed with a message from his security contact, the girl just received a photo outside her apartment. His jaw tightened. He dialed a number, set up surveillance around her building. I don't want him getting close again. Already done, came the reply. Keanu ended the call and stepped out of the car, pulling his hoodie over his head. He knew this kind of anger. He had seen it up close in the past. Some men weren't content with being loud. They needed to destroy. And Rex was that kind of man. At dawn, Janelle woke up to a soft knock. But this time, it wasn't at her front door. It was on her window. She rushed to the living room and peeked through the curtain. Her breath caught. Keanu Reeves stood outside. She opened the door, stunned. Why are you here? His voice was calm but serious. You're not safe, not yet. I had a feeling he wouldn't let it go. Janelle's eyes filled with tears. He knows where I live. He took a photo of me and Jaden. Keanu stepped inside and closed the door gently behind him. I'm going to keep you safe, I promise. She stared at him. But why? Why are you doing all this? Keanu looked at her, his eyes steady. Because people like Rex think they can walk over others. Because silence is how they win. And because I once promised someone I'd never stand by again. He paused. My sister was bullied. Badly. No one stood up for her, not even me. And she didn't make it. Janelle covered her mouth. I'm so sorry. Keanu nodded slowly. This time, I'm not staying silent. Later that day, at the edge of town, Rex sat in a parking lot staring at the photo he had taped to Janelle's door. He didn't notice the small black car parked 3 rows behind him. Inside that car, a quiet man sat with a camera, taking photos. He worked for Keanu's private security team. And he had one job: tracks his every move. Janelle tried to go about her day. She returned to the diner in the afternoon, acting like nothing was wrong. But her smile was weaker. Her hands trembled when she held trays. Her coworkers noticed. You sure you're okay? Asked Jason, a line cook who had always looked out for her. Just tired, Janelle replied. A lot on my mind. But as she cleaned table 6, she looked up and froze. Rex was back. He stood outside the diner, leaning against his motorcycle, staring in through the window. Not smiling, not blinking. Just staring. Janelle's chest tightened. She turned quickly toward the kitchen, trying to calm her breathing. That's when Keanu walked through the door. The entire room shifted. Even those who hadn't seen him before recognized him now. He moved like water, calm, confident, quiet. But his eyes locked straight on Janelle. He's outside, she whispered. He's watching. Keanu nodded. I know. What do? We do? We wait. Outside, Rex finally stepped inside the diner, bold as ever. The room went quiet as he walked toward the counter. He didn't speak to anyone. He sat at the same booth where it all started. And waited. Janelle stood frozen behind the counter, unsure what to do. Gus whispered, You want me to call the cops? But before she could answer, Keanu walked over to Rex and sat across from him again, just like before, only this time the energy was different. Keanu didn't smile. He placed a small recorder on the table and pressed a button. Rex raised an eyebrow. You recording me now? Just making sure the truth stays clear, Keanu said. Rex leaned back. You think you're gonna scare me with your little celebrity act? No, Keanu said quietly. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to stop you. You can't stop me, Rex spat. You think this little town cares? You think people like her matter? Keanu's eyes narrowed. You matter, he said softly, turning his head just enough so Janelle could hear from the counter. You matter more than he'll ever understand, Rex laughed. What are you, her guardian angel now? No, Keanu said, but if I have to be, I will be. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Rex opened it and saw photos. Photos of him at the bar, at the parking lot. Of him taping the note to Janelle's door. "You're being watched too," Keanu said. "And if you take one more step toward her, every lawyer I know will make sure you never leave this state again." Rex's face turned red with fury. "You messed with the wrong girl," he hissed. "No," Keanu said. "You messed with the wrong crowd." Just then, a group of strangers in plain clothes stood up from nearby tables. Security, planted quietly throughout the diner. Keanu had come prepared. Rex stood up, looked around, and saw he had no exit. "This ain't over," he muttered. Keanu stood too. "Yes, it is." And for the second time, Rex stormed out of the diner. But this time he wasn't just humiliated, he was exposed. That night, Janelle sat on her porch while Jaden slept inside. Keanu stood next to her, looking at the stars. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything. You don't need to thank me," he said. "Just promise me you'll never let anyone dim your light." She looked at him. "Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever get tired of fighting for people?" He smiled gently. "Sometimes. But then I meet people like you, and it all makes sense again." The wind whispered around them, and for the first time in days, Janelle felt safe. But little did they know, deeper shadows were still moving. Someone else had entered the game. Someone neither of them expected. And everything was about to change again. The stranger in the shadows. 3 days passed without a sign of Rex. Janelle returned to work. The diner had turned into a sort of safe space. Customers came in not just for coffee, but to thank her, to support her, to sit at her section, just to leave generous tips and kind words. Even Jaden noticed the difference. "People are treating you like a hero, sis," he said one morning as he poured cereal. "You're all over social media." She smiled softly, brushing her fingers through his curly hair. "I'm not a hero, Jay. I'm just someone who stood up." "You weren't alone," he said. "You had Keanu Reeves." The way he said it made Janelle laugh for the first time in days. Yeah, that still doesn't feel real. But elsewhere, Rex wasn't laughing. He was hiding. His pride had been torn apart, his threats recorded, and his actions exposed to the world. He had lost his job at the local auto shop. Even his biker buddies had started distancing themselves. And yet, he wasn't done. Sitting in a dark motel room, Rex scrolled through posts and videos. The diner story had gone viral. Everyone was praising Janelle and Keanu Reeves. The comments were full of words like grace, power, standing up against hate. He smashed his phone against the wall. He opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope. Inside were photos not of Janelle this time, but of a man, tall, bearded, dressed in black. A fixer. A man known for making problems. Disappear. Rex stared at the photo and whispered, "Let's see how the hero handles a real nightmare." Meanwhile, Janelle and Keanu had grown closer. They talked often, walked together in the evenings. They didn't talk about movies or fame. They talked about life, pain, healing, responsibility. "I still remember what you said," Janelle told him one night. "About your sister, about silence." Keanu nodded slowly. Her name was Kim. She was the gentlest soul, and the world crushed her. Janelle put her hand over his. "You're keeping her memory alive." Keanu didn't answer. He just smiled sadly. The next morning, something unusual happened. A new man entered the diner. He wore a clean black coat, no smile, no warmth. He sat in the back booth and ordered nothing. He just watched. Janelle noticed him right away. There was something cold in his eyes, something she couldn't quite name. "You know him?" she asked. Gus. Gus shook his head. Never seen him before. Keanu walked in a few minutes later. As he stepped through the door, his eyes locked instantly with the man's. They both knew. The stranger stood up and walked out. Keanu followed. Janelle rushed after him. "What's going on?" "Stay inside," Keanu said, voice low. "Don't. Follow me." But she didn't listen. She stepped just outside the door in time to hear Keanu say, "Tell Rex he's playing with fire." The stranger didn't flinch. He already lit the match. And then he walked away. Keanu looked back at Janelle, concern deep in his face. "This isn't just about you anymore." That night, a fire broke out in the alley behind the diner. Dumpster burned quickly, flames licking up the walls. Firefighters arrived fast, and no one was hurt. But carved into the brick wall behind the flames were 3 words: "Stay in line." The message was clear. Gus had to close the diner for the first time in 5 years. Keanu called a friend, a security expert who owed him a favor. "I need to know who that man is," he said. Black coat, early 40s tall, cold eyes. Within hours he had a name. Dominic, ex-military, underground work. "No trail. He's a ghost," the friend said. "And he only moves for big money." Keanu knew then Rex had gone too far. This wasn't about an insult anymore. This was about revenge. And he couldn't let it go further. Keanu met Janelle at the park near her home. "We're leaving town," he said, "just for a while. Until we figure this out." Janelle blinked. "You want me to run?" "Not run," Keanu said. "Reposition. You and Jaden, come with me. My team will handle the rest." She shook her head. "I can't leave my life." "You won't have a life if you're not safe." She paused. "And what about the diner and Gus?" "They'll understand. This isn't forever. It's just ... distance until the threat is gone." But as they walked back toward her apartment, a black car drove slowly past them. Inside, Dominic sat in the driver's seat, watching, smiling. He had already been inside her home earlier that day. He had left nothing behind, except one small listening device. He was already ahead of them. Hours later, as Janelle packed a bag for Jaden, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a video. She played it. The screen showed Jaden at school, leaving through the front gate, walking down the street, alone. A voice whispered, "You run." And he gets hurt. Her knees gave out. Keanu caught her. "They followed him," she gasped. "They filmed him. They know everything." Keanu picked up the phone, staring hard at the video. His voice dropped to a whisper. "This ends now." He stepped outside and made a call. "Bring the plane. Get her and the boy to safety. Tonight, I'll handle the rest." Keanu didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his room, listening to old voicemails from his sister. His hands gripped an old notebook full of her poems. He read one quietly. "The world may bruise the soul, but kindness is the cure." He closed the book. And decided if they wanted a fight, they'd get one, but it wouldn't be with guns or fists. It would be with something they didn't expect. Truth. As dawn broke, Keanu saw Jaden and Janelle off at the airport. She hugged him tight, whispering, "Please be careful." He smiled gently. "Always." She looked at him one last time. "Why are you doing all this?" "Really?" He held her gaze. "Because I failed someone once," he said, "and I'm not going to fail you." Back in town, Dominic met Rex in an abandoned warehouse. "The girl's gone," he said. Rex cursed. "What about the actor?" Dominic grinned. "He stayed behind." Rex's eyes lit up with rage and hunger. "Good. It's time someone taught him a lesson." But what they didn't know was that Keanu wasn't alone. He had backup coming. And everything was about to turn. The trapped morning was still dark when Keanu Reeves stepped out of the hotel. Fog rolled low over the streets, hiding the cracks in the pavement and the pain in his thoughts. He wore a simple gray hoodie, dark jeans, and a calm expression. But inside, he was sharpening his instincts like blades. The threat had grown. This was no longer just a bully's revenge. Rex had brought in a ghost, a man who lived in shadows, who watched silently, and who had now followed Jaden. Keanu had sent Janelle and her brother far from town, tucked away with a trusted team in a private estate beyond the mountains. They were safe for now. But he wasn't finished. Not until Rex and Dominic were exposed. Not until no one else had to feel what Janelle did in that diner. Keanu walked into a quiet cafe and sat in the back booth. Across from him sat Natalie, a former investigative journalist and one of his oldest allies. "You said it was urgent," she said, sipping her coffee. Keanu slid over a flash drive. "It's all there. The harassment, the threats, footage, audio, recordings. I want you to make it public." Natalie looked at him. "You sure? This will blow up. People will dig into everything." "I'm counting on it," Keanu said. Natalie leaned forward. "And what are you doing in the meantime?" He stood up slowly. "I'm setting a trap." Meanwhile, Rex paced the floor of the warehouse. "He's alone now," he growled. "No bodyguards, no actress fans, no cameras." Dominic leaned against the wall, calm and collected. "He's not as weak as you think. If he stayed behind, it's because he's planning something," Rex scoffed. "He's an actor. He's also dangerous," Dominic warned. But Rex was already lost in his own rage. "I want him humiliated, broken." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "We don't need more attention," Rex pointed at him. "No one humiliates me on camera and gets away with it." "You're getting paid to help. Do your job," Dominic sighed. "Fine. But this ends tonight." Back at the diner, Gus unlocked the door. The smell of smoke still lingered from the alley fire. But the spirit of the place refused to die. Keanu arrived minutes later. "You sure about this?" Gus asked. Keanu nodded. "The cameras are hidden. Microphones in place. If he shows up tonight like I think he will, we'll have him. And if he brings trouble?" Keanu looked him in the eye. "Then I finish it." Night fell like a curtain. Inside the diner, the lights were low, and the foul lights were low. Tables empty. A few plainclothes members of Keanu's security team sat scattered, disguised as customers. Natalie had already begun releasing the story online, with the hashtag stand with Janelle trending within an hour. Outside, 2 cars rolled to a stop. Dominic stepped out first. Behind him, Rex slammed his door and cracked his knuckles. "He's inside," Dominic said. "Perfect," Rex muttered. They entered the diner. Everything felt normal. Too normal. Rex scanned the room, saw Keanu sitting alone in the booth where it all began. He grinned and walked over. "Miss me?" he sneered. Keanu looked up calmly. "I was wondering when you'd crawl back out." Rex leaned in. "You're alone now. Where's your camera crew?" "Right where they need to be," Keanu replied. Dominic narrowed his eyes. Something felt off. Keanu reached into his jacket and placed a small device on the table. A live feed. It showed the 2 of them. Their faces clear, their voices being streamed in real time. Rex blinked. "What the?" Keanu spoke loud and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen watching around the world, this is the man who threatened a young woman and her brother. This is the man who taped threats to her door, who brought violence to silence her." Rex turned red. "Turn it off." He lunged at Keanu, but 2 security men grabbed him and slammed him to the floor. Dominic moved toward the door, but another figure stepped in front of him. Natalie, holding a phone. "You'll live too," she said. "Run, and every journalist in the state will have your face by morning." Keanu stood over Rex. "You want to know why this matters?" he said. "Because dignity matters. Because kindness isn't weakness. And because people like you don't get to win." Rex spat. "You think people care about her?" "She's just a No," Keanu said firmly. "She's not just anything. She's Janelle. And you'll say her name with respect or not at all." Hours later, the police arrived. Dominic was arrested on outstanding warrants. Rex was taken in for harassment, threats, and attempted arson. Thanks to the evidence Keanu had gathered, The diner buzzed again, not with fear, but with relief. A week passed. Janelle and Jaden returned home. The diner reopened with balloons tied to the door and a banner that read, "Welcome back, Janelle." She walked in, eyes full of tears, and hugged Gus tightly. The customers clapped and cheered. Keanu stepped forward with a warm smile. "Told you you mattered," she hugged him. "You didn't just protect me. You changed everything," Keanu smiled. "You changed it, Janelle. I just helped you stand taller." Outside, cameras from news stations gathered. But Keanu didn't face them. He walked down the street, away from the flash and noise. Someone asked him as he passed, "Why did you get involved?" He turned, looked at the reporter, and said quietly, "Because silence protects bullies, and I refuse to be silent." Then he walked off into the golden sunlight. But there was one more surprise waiting, and it would come from someone Janelle never expected, someone from her past, and they were about to change her life all over again. The voice she never forgot. Sky was a deep orange when Janelle stepped out of the diner that evening. The welcome back celebration had quieted, and most of the town had gone home. The streets were calm, peaceful. She carried a basket of leftover biscuits wrapped in foil and a warm smile on her face. Keanu stood outside leaning against his car, arms crossed, his eyes watching the sky. "You did it," he said softly as she approached. "You didn't just survive, you showed them what real strength looks like." Janelle smiled. "I didn't do it alone." He shook his head. "No. But you carried the heaviest weight." She looked at him. "So, what now?" Keanu looked off toward the fading sun. "I think it's time to go. My work here is done." Janelle's heart sank a little. "I was hoping you'd stay." Keanu chuckled. "I've never stayed in one place too long, but I'm always around when needed." She stepped forward and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." He whispered, "Never stop standing tall." As he stepped into his car, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A voice came through, soft, shaky, familiar. "Janelle? It's me, Mama." Janelle froze. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "Mama? Is it really you?" "Yes, baby. I saw everything. I didn't know how to reach you after all these years. But I saw your face on the news. You were so strong. Just like your daddy." Janelle covered her mouth. "Mama, where have you been?" The voice cracked. "I've been clean 3 years. Now, I was ashamed to come back. But when I saw you stand up to that man, with the whole world watching, I knew I had to try." Janelle stepped away from the sidewalk and sat on a bench, the phone shaking in her hand. "I wanted you to know," her mother said, "that I never stopped loving you. I just couldn't love myself." Janelle cried silently. "Do you think," her mother asked, "we could meet?" The next afternoon, at a quiet garden by the river, Janelle sat on a bench with Jaden by her side. His hand gripped hers tightly. A woman walked toward them slowly. Her clothes were simple, her hands trembled. But her eyes, those eyes held decades of sorrow and hope. "Mama?" Janelle whispered. The woman nodded. "Yes, baby." And Janelle ran to her. They hugged so tightly, it was as if time folded in on itself. Jaden joined them moments later, his arms wrapping around both. It wasn't perfect, but it was healing. Keanu watched from across the park, hidden behind a row of trees, sunglasses on, hoodie up. He saw the reunion, saw the tears, saw the beginnings of something whole. He smiled faintly, then turned to leave. Natalie appeared beside him. "You're not going to say goodbye?" "I already did," he said. "This was never about me. You think they'll be okay?" Keanu nodded. "They already are." 1 week later, a scholarship fund was started in Janelle's name for young black women entering hospitality and business programs. Keanu made the first donation. The story of the diner incident reached national news. But it wasn't the fame that mattered, it was the change. Schools started using the clip in classrooms. Conversations about dignity, race, and power began to spark across the country. Janelle got a call from a talk show. She turned it down. She wasn't interested in spotlights. She just wanted to live, serve, and love. And that was more than enough. One day, months later, she received a letter. No return address. Inside was a photo of the diner at night. Warm lights glowing through the windows. On the back was a message. The world gets loud. Don't forget your quiet power. She smiled. Folded the photo and placed it inside her journal. Years later, Janelle would become co-owner of the diner. Her brother would graduate college with honors. Her mother would volunteer at recovery centers. And whenever someone asked her how it all changed, she would say it started with hate, but it ended with hope. And a stranger who refused to stay silent